Hey everyone, in this episode, we're going to discuss current snapshot and what forbearance is doing. So let's get into it. Hey everyone, I'm sitting here with Joe Brown. He is on our team, the Tom J. Krieger team, as our marketing director. So Joe stopped in today to help work with me. Matt is out, believe it or not, trying to sell property in our marketplace right now. It is kind of crazy because our inventory, currently we only have about 1,050 homes on the market. And normally at this time, in a normal market, we'd have about 6,600 homes. So what we're seeing in the market today is that there is a lot of pressure on the buyers. They've got to come in with great offers. They've got to usually be overpriced, and sometimes they got to give away some concessions, like maybe the appraisal isn't going to be a big issue on a financed one, especially on a cash purchase. We're not going to see it's subject to appraisals on a very well-priced property. And it's not unheard of to see an offer on a property being in competition with about 10 to 12 other offers. It is that kind of crazy in our market right now. So that's where Matt is. I want to get in with Joe. Joe's got a couple questions he wants to ask me, and we're going to do this give and take a little bit here. So Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Grateful to have you here.
Thank you. Normally I'm behind the cameras doing this stuff, so Matt's not being a bum. I'm in here covering for him.
Yep.
So now with the current market, I know you're talking about multiple offers. I wanted to ask you about new builds in that regard. Have you seen any changes as far as new builds gone historically and making offers on a new construction purchase?
Well, Joe, I've been doing this for 40 years, and I've seen everything there is under the book. What we're seeing now is very interesting. Just very recently in April, we're starting to see builders go out to auctions. And a lot of people go, what in the blazes is an auction?
So they're eBay now, basically.
Yeah, almost like eBay, right? So here's what an auction is. They're going to give you a website if you're interested in a development, okay? And then they're going to say, on Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning, we're going to open up the bidding for the lot. So a lot may come available at $50,000, right? And that's the starting point. So, like if you're at Christie's or something like that, where they're doing the auctions, you start out at $50,000 and you can bid above $50,000 as high as you want. Sometimes people are going $10,000, $15,000, $25,000 above the lot. The highest bidder for the lot then has the opportunity to meet with the builder. They win, in essence, the initial bid. They meet with the builder, they'll sit down with the builder, they'll discuss what floor plan they want to build or what model they want to build, and then the upgrades. And now what we're also seeing and this is very interesting, and people really need to pay attention to this, the builders are limiting the upgrades. Because what's happening is because they're paying so much for the lots, and then the house base price is fixed, and then they're adding so much on the upgrades, the appraisals aren't coming in. So the builders are being smart in one way. A lot of people think they're greedy. In a little way they are. I mean, we're a profit. People have to make profit, right?
Sure.
But what we're seeing is the builders self-discipline themselves when it comes to allowing the buyer to overprice the home for the marketplace. So the builders are putting in restrictions to prevent the buyer from, in essence, having to come to closing with with more money because it won't appraise.
Sure.
So those are some of the things we're seeing in new build. Although don't let that discourage you, because not every builder is doing that. Okay, it's usually just the low priced end builders, like what we're going to call the entry level type of builders.
Yeah.
Now, in an average builder that we're dealing with in the Tucson market, and I think in general across the United States, they're limiting the amount of homes they're releasing to. Now, I was around in 2006 and 2007, where people from California would come in and buy 10 lots, start the build process, property values were increasing so much, they sold their contracts to the buyers, and they were making $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 on selling the contract a month before closing.
Interesting.
They're really not allowing that to happen anymore.
Sure.
So in some of the places we're building, you're seeing agents go in there and putting their name down on a list, and it's usually first come, first served that ends up getting that. So that's what we're seeing new construction. They're not allowing overbuilding. And since the pandemic has slowed down a little bit, we're not seeing as much slowing of the labor force in the construction of the building. In other words, when one person on a crew gets sick, they're shutting them down for 14 days, right?
Yep.
We're not seeing that anymore right now. Doesn't mean it won't come back, but currently that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answers that.
So and with that, I've seen a lot of a big rise in lumber costs. You know, a sheet of OSB used to cost under $10, and now they're close to 40. You know, so how does that affect new construction? Will prices rise within that, or?
So what we're seeing introduced into the market now are called these pricing addendums. So when you are fortunate enough to be the person picked to have a lot to build a house on, when you're signing the contract, there's a what we call an escalation rider or addendum. In our industry, we call it an addendum. And that rider says that the builder, if lumber prices rise, can raise the price by as much as $10,000. Now, each builder is different. Some of them I've seen like $4,600. One of the current ones I've seen, because I'm building right now with the builder too myself, is that they could raise the price by $10,000 from its original price, okay?
Gotcha.
Its base price. And that's because they can't project the lumber market. Now, there's a lot of opinions about, is it greed, is it corrupt or whatever? I don't know. I'm not getting down that road.
Yep.
The only thing I do know is that lumber prices are going up.
Yeah. They can be a slippery slope getting into that one.
Yes, we're not going there.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
So you are getting a new construction home built currently. Yeah. That's supposed to be done by the end of this year. Is that right?
Yeah, about September 15th is when they're projecting.
Well, that's exciting.
Providing nobody gets sick,
right? Yes, that's true.
Or lumber prices don't go so high.
Yeah, they'll be through the roof here.
Yeah.
Who knows where we're headed. But so with all that pressure that's happening with the inventory currently, both in resale and even new construction, what's kind of happening with interest rates and you know what are buyers and even sellers kind of looking at right now?
So a lot of people don't realize how the interest rate for a mortgage is affected. Okay, what causes it to go up? What causes it to go down? Most likely it's tied into the 10-year bond. And I'm not a financial advisor, but I know some things. So the 10-year bond used to be at 0.6. Okay, right now it's 1.68 as we were speaking. So interest rates from a year ago were 2.71%. Currently, today's rate is 3.35%. So interest rates have gone up. Now, that's on a 30-year fixed. If you're looking like a 15-year, the numbers on that are 2.675 for the current 15-year, and a year ago it was 1.99. Wow. So even in the shorter terms, it's starting to affect interest rates. And I think people need to be aware of, they're not jumping up to 4.5, 5, 6, 7, or 8.
It's a slow increase.
It's going to be a slow increase. So
Gotcha.
I suggest people take action now if they want to buy a house and or sell their house, okay? Because as interest rates go up, Joe, people only really realize how much can I afford per month.
Yep.
So I'll pay $1 million for your house if you can get me a payment that fits within my parameters, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Or if the interest rates are high, I'm not going to pay $1 million for that house. I'm going to pay $500,000 because that's all I can afford per month.
Yep.
So interest rates really do affect the pricing of homes based upon the buyer, the consumer, how much they can pay per month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I think to most people buying a home, they may not understand what that percentage means. They understand the lower the number, the lower that they would have to pay monthly. But as these costs rise, could you give an example of what that might look like for an easy mortgage, like $200,000 mortgage, what would that roughly? And I know I'm maybe putting you on the math spot here, but what would that sort of look like between last year and this year's current interest rates?
So I think based upon, and again, this is what we call an educated guesstimate.
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of factors that
if
go
you
into
were
that.
looking at per month, all right, that's all you were looking at as the qualifier for what you buy. And rates have gone from 2.71 to 3.35. You're probably going to have to start paying for that $200,000 house. You're going to have to start looking for a 175.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Now here's the other thing. This is the other caveat here.
Good luck. 175 in this market.
Yeah,
but,
right. Exactly. That's the other caveat.
Yeah.
You know, we're out there and people are looking for these houses, and these are the ones that are getting 10, 15, 20 offers on. They're asking for you to waive home inspections. They're asking for you to take the appraisal out. They're asking for you to maybe bid over what the list price was.
Yeah.
The other aspect is that a $200,000 house a year ago currently is probably selling for $250,000 right now.
Sure.
People are, looking. It's just a lack of inventory.
Yep.
So now the rates go up and the value of the homes are still going up. Those people are, the first-time home buyers are really getting hammered.
Sure.
And part of that too, Joe, is the fact that people are coming in with cash.
Yep.
We have a lot of cash buyers, okay?
And they're not from here.
No, they're not from Tucson.
Yeah.
No, they're still though through the whole country. There are more cash buyers out there. People are starting to downsize. They're getting out of the big cities because they don't necessarily need to work in Silicon Valley. They can live in Utah and still work remotely. They don't need to work downtown New York.
Right.
They can, move out to the suburbs, have a little bit more space, a bigger home, no commute, and the properties are less value currently. Obviously, the pressure's driving them up, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a tough situation. You got to be with a really good real estate agent who understands this kind of market to get you in front if you're buying.
Yeah.
Now, if you're selling, that's an entire difference. Okay.
You're in control of the boat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And right now, America, I'm going to tell you, we need listings out here. It's, I'm going to say to you, think about selling your house in the peak market right now, grabbing all you can as far as a profit, and then utilizing the profit margin to be put as the down payment, and then go borrow some more money and maybe get a bigger house for the same dollar value.
Sure.
That's what's putting a lot of pressure on the markets right now.
Sure. So what you're saying is we need inventory.
We need inventory.
Yeah. And it is definitely a solid time for sellers to think about that if they have been, because we're thinking a shift might occur here in the near future. Obviously, we can't predict it like it with any market, but we have forbearance kind of as an issue kind of occurring right now. Can you talk a little bit about how that might be affecting people right now?
Joe, it's interesting you bring that up. This is a moving target, okay? Yeah. This is all run by the politicians, so understand that, America. It's all run by the politicians. They're saying this, and then as they see things happen, they're reacting. So as an example, the end of forbearance was supposed to happen at the end of June. Okay. Now, the current information that I have here in my paperwork is that they're going to extend this forbearance period until January of 2022, which means people have another 7 months in which they're not forced to make their mortgage payments or their rent payments. They're not going to be foreclosed on. But what's happening is that they're building up more and more of a deficit in the amount of money they owe. Okay? So they're not paying the mortgage off, and this is building up. We don't know where they're going to go as far as how they're going to allow people to pay these mortgages back or the delinquency back. Sometimes what they're saying is that, so I'm going to read this right from the borrower's timeline. Every one of the nearly 3 million borrowers behind on their mortgage should have a chance to explore ways to resume making payments and avoid foreclosure. To make sure borrowers aren't rushed into the foreclosure market when a potentially unprecedented number of borrowers exit forbearance around the same time this fall and or early spring, The proposed rule that I just talked about would provide a special foreclosure review period that would greatly reduce the pressure coming in. And that forbearance program, again, will start sometime after December 31st of 2021. The Consumer Finance Protection Bureau is still trying to seek public input on this date and to find out more ways to limit the pressure on the servicing banks for all of these, okay? They're going to offer certain streamlined loan modifications, but again, we need to be cognizant that eventually 2.1 million mortgages in forbearance that are over 90 days delinquent, if they keep going, the current trend will be about 1.7 million loans will come onto the market under a foreclosure at some point in time.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that if I think I would believe that the government doesn't want another 2008 to happen. So they may be sort of closely monitoring how this is going. Now, is their direction going to affect mortgage holders directly, so that their directions are basically giving them instructions on how to approach this, right?
Yes. So the CFPB also put out guidelines for options for repayment. And this is what people need to understand. Currently, right now, your lender is going to ask you to pay it all in one lump sum, but you don't have to.
So that it's not like a balloon payment.
No.
Where everything's due now, otherwise you're SOL.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. So here's the deal. You can ask the lender, what are the other options you have available? And they have to disclose those to you. Okay. Some of I'm not going to bore people with terms, but I'll just give you ideas. Some of them is they take the delinquency that you owe, they add it to the principal that you owe, and they recast the loan out. Okay, recasting means we take those two numbers, we add them together, and then we divide it by 360 payments. That would be a 30-year recast. Gotcha. They may recast it for the amount of time you have left on your loan. So let's say you're halfway through your loan and you have 15 years left. They may take your delinquents, okay, or your forbearance, add it to the principal, and then recast it over 15 years.
Gotcha.
Okay, that's one way. Another way is to just put those payments on the back end. So let's say you were at the 15-year mark, but you had 12 months worth of payments you didn't make. You then would have another 12 months after the end of the 15 years to make those payments. Okay. Another way they're playing with, it isn't hard and fast, but another way they're playing is they're looking at changing the interest rates. Okay.
Gotcha.
So they'll forgive the delinquent, but they'll adjust the interest rate so they make the delinquency up.
Because they're considered a higher risk loan.
So you're going to pay more at a higher interest rate.
Gotcha.
The bank or basically the bondholder that holds it will end up receiving their money over a specific duration of time. Okay. So they're kind of playing around with this. Nothing's hard and fast, but one thing currently, as of April 2021, is that you don't have to make all that delinquents up right away. Okay?
So would you say the largest mortgage insurance or mortgage bondholder would be Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac?
Yes,
currently.
I would say they're the largest.
So most of this would affect what CFPB is putting out, affect those bondholders, and they would overall be the ones who would be you would have to negotiate with as the homeowner, correct?
Right. But the government's going to put their hand in this because the government created this, and a lot of people feel the way they want to feel about the federal government, but I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to avoid 2008. And I think you and I have been in the business long enough. I think if we could go back in time and tell the banks, do these little modification, in the long run, it's going to save everybody. But hindsight is always 20/20, right?
Boy, ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
So now with the vaccine becoming more readily available, more being made by manufacturers, and people feeling generally more comfortable. I know I'm halfway to my vaccination.
Good for you.
Yeah, thank you. So I get my superpowers here pretty soon. But what does that controlling of COVID kind of look like? I feel like that might be as the comfort level rises, people might feel more comfortable with potential buyers coming to their home if they're thinking about selling. Do you kind of see that happening right now?
Yeah, in our political climate that we have here, and unfortunately we have to talk about it, but there are people that are adamant that they don't need to wear masks. There are people that are adamant you do to wear masks. I'm not here to judge. What I'm here to is a report on that if we have people who are more comfortable with people coming into their homes and allowing people to show their homes, we're going to see an increase of homes coming on the market. Okay?
Yeah.
Nobody knows for sure how this is all going to go. The tendencies by the states are to release the mask regulations as more and more people get inoculated with the shots from Moderna or Johnson & Johnson.
Pfizer,
all of those.
Yeah.
I think people are going to get more comfortable with allowing people into their home, which means they're going to be more comfortable with putting their houses on the market, which then the domino effect is we're not going to see 8, 10, 12 offers on a property, and we're not going to see the first-time home buyers get squeezed out like they are right now. It's a shame. It's a shame what's happening in the marketplace right now for first-time home buyers. Now, in addition to that, what we're also starting to see are the millennials. They're now starting to get to the point where...
I'm in that group, by the way.
Yeah, I know you are.
I don't want to be, but I'm the early millennial,
Yep.
and I'm like, I don't get those kids from the 90s, but...
Yeah, well, not for me to judge. I'm in the baby boomer deal, right?
Yep.
So where we're at right now with the millennials starting to come out, that's putting even more added pressure, okay? So pressure's coming all over the place on causing home prices to rise. Yeah. The only thing I can see that's going to stop the rising of home prices is going to be more inventory on the market and higher interest rates. Yeah. We have to take that blend and slowly introduce it into the marketplace, because if we don't, we're going to have a shock.
Sure.
And we don't want to cause that.
Overnight, it would basically shift from a seller's market to a buyer's market. And that,
exactly,
like you're saying, that could cause a shock.
That's a shock, yeah. And usually when we have those types of influences in the marketplace, the shock usually ends up being a negative.
Sure.
So prices may drop a little. Now, again, we are not going back to 2007, 8, or 9, or 10.
Yeah.
I will make that clear. I'll say it again. We are not going back there. We're a smarter population in general when it comes to that. The powers to be are, they got burnt once. They're not going to let it happen again.
Yep.
And people themselves are in a better position now than they were before, because back in 6, 7, and 8, they were giving anybody a loan that could fog up a mirror, right?
Sure.
Now the requirements for getting a loan are a little more strict. And what we're seeing is people have more equity in their house than they did back then. We're not seeing these quote 80-20 loans where the entire purchase of the house is financed, 80% on a first, 20% on a second, right?
Yep.
So that if the value of the property dropped, there was no way to refinance out, right?
Yeah.
And we're not seeing these crazy balloon adjustable rate mortgages or ARMs that we have.
Sure.
We're not seeing any of that too. So I don't think at all we're going to be there. People have equity. I think it's like 42% of all America who owns homes have no mortgage. Okay.
Sure.
And
that's
then
great.
the balance of those, and I'm not totally specific, but I know I'm close, about 40% of the balance of those people have about a 50% equity position in their home.
That's
so
great.
even if the home drops 10%, they could, and they were going to be foreclosed on, they could sell that property and they could get money for it. They wouldn't have to just turn it back to the bank.
Sure. I want to bring in an observation that I've seen is that people are basically recasting the loan or and basically taking money out of their property and reinvesting it in their house and doing some upgrades.
Yep.
And they haven't really been interested in selling it. They've been interested in just maintaining and upkeeping, and that also increases your equity position by doing those deferred maintenance activities and even building out a little bit, adding more square footage and things like that. So that's a really interesting thing. I think that I see happening. This is just anecdotal on my part. going through neighborhoods and living in a few different neighborhoods, I've seen some sort of evolutions happening, and it is good to see that, because I think it helps neighborhood values overall as people start to increase value in their home by reinvesting.
Yeah, cosmetic facelifts is what we call those.
yeah. Every house has to have it over time.
We there's a joke in the industry that like Home Depot and Lowe's and all those, they're the Botox providers for the homes. Make them look younger.
That is true. The thing we have to be careful about though is that the homeowner doing it themselves, and they go to resell, and then they have the home inspection, and
correct,
and then the home inspector's like, there's some not so great things happening here and here. That's probably something else that home sellers or homeowners should be careful with.
Yeah, maybe that's another podcast that we do.
Yeah, exactly. Coming from my father, who was a contractor, I got to work with him. So, seeing good craftsmanship, I think is important when selling. So,
absolutely.
Anyway, another podcast, like you say, we'll save that for another time. So, what do you think buyers would look like as these homes begin to come on the market more and more?
Well, I think as we get a greater inventory onto the market of homes for sale, we're going to stop seeing, as I said, 5, 6, 7 offers. We're going to stop seeing $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over list price. We're going to stop seeing the pressure on appraisers to justify the appraisal. Okay, yeah. I think that's going to really make a big dent in what we're doing.
Sure.
Okay, so to help the first-time home buyer out, maybe we want to encourage people to put their homes on the market.
Sure.
And also, I hope the lumber prices come back in line where they need to be, because then home builders can start building affordable housing.
Even smaller, like one-shot builders, where you could buy a lot and they can build.
Yeah,
rather than
builds,
rather than go to a build site like with KB or Lennar or some big builder like that.
Yes,
right.
Some of the national builders.
Yeah.
And we're not promoting KB or Lennar. They're just people that popped into our heads.
Yeah, exactly. But if they want to send us any incentives, no, I'm just kidding. And so, one thing I've noticed as a millennial, we tend to wait a little bit longer to buy a home. We've been more cautious, I think, because we did live through 2008. And I see a lot more tiny home activity and home living out of a van, sort of lifestyle. No, I don't think that is maintainable, obviously, as families grow and things like this. But I believe the older millennials like myself are finally, in their early 30s, late 20s. I'm not going to say exactly where I'm at, but we have more interest in buying a home, and more interest in, because of COVID, has sent them to have a home office and have to have all of these certain things, and even plants and gardening has become big in our generation. So I feel like that is changing a lot of the buying patterns as far as these new buyers coming up on the market. And they are the largest buying pool, right?
Yes, they've overtaken us baby boomers because we're dying off.
Yeah, there's somewhere around like 30%, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, 30. Yeah. I think you're like 32 or 33%, and we're like 29% of the baby boomers, something like that.
Kind of neck and neck almost.
Now, our numbers are always subject to change.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
But in general, we're giving you kind of outlines here. Yeah. Joe, you said this about the millennials and that, and in addition, I'm seeing is the research that millennials do, along with the concept of maybe we should be looking at generational housing, where we can take care of mom and dad and grandma and grandpa.
Yeah.
Because as adults, we're living longer. So grandma and grandpa are living a lot longer than they used to. Yep. Mom and dad are living a lot longer than they used to. And we're starting to see the concept of generational building by the builders, and not only the big production builders, but also the independent builders.
Yeah.
And municipalities are starting to look at, do we need to change zoning specifically for generational building or housing? So, Joe, I'd like to kind of wrap this up. okay, on this podcast. We've talked a lot about a lot of things. In wrapping it up, the bottom line, here's the deal. We need more homes on the market so that first-time home buyers can buy an affordable house, okay? COVID is slowly going away. We're hopefully towards the end of this year going to have this in the rearview mirror far enough that we don't see it, okay? Hopefully lumber prices will start to calm down and builders will start to be able to produce more affordable housing. And we as a population can get more on track with trying to better society. And the last thing I want to leave you with is that we as real estate agents care about the population. And we want to keep you from spending too much money on your house when you're buying, and we want to represent you properly when you're selling to get you into a better place.
That's across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on our next podcast, we're going to talk about buying your first rental property or investment property. So tune in next time.
See you then.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Nitty Gritty podcast. If you have any questions about buying, selling, investing, or even getting your real estate license, please give us a call or reach out to us. Our info is in the description.